some of the parents of Lucy Letby's victims read out, as I'm sure you heard, these incredibly emotional, heartbreaking, poignant witness statements in the court yesterday, describing her as despicable and evil. But, of course, she wasn't there to hear them. She wasn't there to hear the judge, because she just refused point blank to come back and face the music.
So how and why was that allowed to happen? And when will the law be changed to force criminals to face their victims? Well, Gillian Keegan is here now, Education Secretary, and we'll talk to you about important matters relating to that as well this morning. But that is what people are saying to us this morning. It's two things, really. It's one, how did that happen when we know the Prime Minister and the government wanted it to be that that people like this are there to hear victim statements? Why are we still in this position of another person, if you like, getting away with it? And why can't we bring and hear a stronger inquiry so we find out how it was allowed to happen? You can take those in turn, but those are the two key ones.
Yes, thanks, Kate. Well, first of all, in terms of sentencing, I think there is, the Lord Chancellor's made very clear that he's looking to bring forward legislation so that in sentencing courts, which aren't included in current legislation, that they can, bring forward legislation that would mean that they have to listen to victims' impact statements. And as you say, they were truly harrowing statements, and I know that they were printed and taken down to the cell where she was being held, but it's not the same as having to face the families, and it's not the same for the families either.
So
the Lord Chancellor is committed to bring forward that legislation.
We heard this, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but of course we heard this with Olivia Pratt-Corbell, didn't we? So is it, in your opinion and your view, the conscience and the position of the government that this will happen as soon as possible when Parliament returns?
Yes, I do think that will happen. I mean, as you say, it has been something that we've been wanting to do. I mean, the thing about parliamentary time is you've always got tons of pressure on parliamentary time. But I think, as you say, the case of Olivia, which I think, it was another similar case where Thomas Cashman refused to listen to the impact statements, and the same with this case as well. I think that means that it will almost certainly be prioritised. But of course, I'm not the person prioritising, so the Lord Chancellor will be working with all the different bodies now to make sure, and also what the law should look like, because that's the that is the other thing. You have to get a law that's right.
I was going to ask you that, and I know it's not directly in your brief, but you're a government minister. You're on duty today to answer these questions. You've spoken to your colleagues. You'll have been briefed on this. You will know that even those people who want to see this happen and want to see these defendants in the dock being sentenced, listening to witness statements, do have concerns, because two main issues. One, the safety and the security of the prison officers who have to bring them up. And they may be bringing up a man who's extremely violent and is resisting with all the strength in his possession, being dragged into the court. You may have a defendant insulting those trying to read out the witness statements, swearing at the judge and all the rest of it. How do we deal with, because those are real concerns, how do you think we deal with them in the legislation that you're talking about?
Well, that's what makes legislation tricky. Quite often it appears straightforward, but then when you look at what could happen and the unintended consequences of legislation, and that's what really makes making the law quite a long process, because you really do need to test all of these things and see what would be the right approach in what ways. And really, what you're trying to do is make sure that the judges, the prison officers, that they have the right powers as well. So that will be something that we would have to go through the detail. But you've got the nub, and actually people who've got some experience have got the nub of the questions that we will need to answer with this legislation. But
you will do it. Whatever the difficulties, you will overcome them, you will pick your way through them, and however it's done, we will see people like Letby in the future in the dock to hear their sentence.
I think the Lord Chancellor's been pretty clear. He's committed to do it. And I think this case, obviously we've all been shocked and sickened by it, but, you know, there will be many, many lessons to be learned, but this is one that I think the Lord Chancellor said very clearly we would, you know, we want to put legislation in place, so he will be bringing that
Kate's
forward
second question
at the earliest opportunity.
Okay, okay, and thank you, that's
sorry.
clear. Kate's, sorry to interrupt, we're short for time. Kate's second point to you was, what about this inquiry into what happened and the investigation into the behaviour of the NHS bureaucrats? People want it, most people want it to be a statutory inquiry, a judge who can compel people like the bureaucrats who are being blamed for the continuing murders in the hospital to be brought by force if necessary, talking about force, but compulsorily into court to give evidence. Do you support that?
Well, I was with the Prime Minister yesterday and he was really clear that we need to have an inquiry that satisfies the families in terms of them getting answers that they need and clearly deserve. That also it allows us to, you know, learn very much from some of the lessons of this and also is transparent. So the next stage of the process, my understanding is we'll appoint a chair and then that chair will work with the families on the terms of reference and discuss the pros and cons of a, you know, statutory versus non-statutory inquiry and then come back with the answer then. So I think there is an openness in terms of making sure the most important thing, as the Prime Minister said, is it gives the families the answers they need, and that is gives us the lessons that we need to learn, and it is transparent.
Now, you're out this morning as Education Secretary to talk about new free schools, including Eton College, launching new sixth forms around the country. That can't be a bad thing, some may say, but others would argue that actually it's outsourcing to private schools the responsibility of government that should be really looking to raise standards for all.
Well, so we have been very focused on raising standards for all. So 2010, we've actually developed 650 of these free schools. So this is 15 more, but there's been many that have gone before, as well as our sort of focus on excellence and multi-academy trusts. And that's why we've gone from 68% of schools being good or outstanding to 88%. It's been a big part of our drive to make sure that we have these standards. And we're now, you know, getting to the last 12% and we're looking to fill some of those gaps. And what the free schools have allowed us to do is to introduce innovation into education. So we announced the Brit School for the North on Sunday. We've got UTCs working with businesses in both Southampton and in Doncaster. And we also have Eton working with the Star Academy, which is a multi-academy trust that's got a great track record of turning round schools that were failing or had poor results and basically making sure they have great results, providing that fantastic opportunity for children all across the country. So it's a great innovation. It's something that we only have in England. It's not in the rest of the country, but it's really driving some fantastic opportunities for young people.
All righty, we actually have more questions for you about that, but I'm afraid we're way over time. Our colleagues in LBC Radio and Talk Radio are all demanding your attention, and we've stolen some of their time, for which we apologise. Thanks very much for being with us.